everybody. Lori Goldman here. Welcome back to For the Sake of the Argument. Today we had Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. He's running for Senate here in Michigan. We talked about Medicare. We talked about so many things. We talked about Medicare for all, the problems with healthcare in this country, and bringing transformative change to our politics. Stay tuned next time and enjoy, and make sure to follow us on all social medias. I hope to see you again. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for being on For the Sake of the Argument, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. You are running for U.S. Senate.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's pretty cool. But can I ask you a couple questions that I have?
Sure.
What are you doing? Like, what is your job? Do you have a job right now?
I run. No, I do. So I host a podcast called America Dissected, and that is a job. And then I do a bit of consulting just in the public health space. But I am probably doing this 90 to 100 hours a week. It's like an all day, every day kind of thing. My most recent job was leading Health, Human, and Veteran Services for Wayne County, but I had to quit when I decided to run. There's Hatch Act limitations, so you can't be an appointed official and also be politicking at the same time.
I didn't know politicians had to follow rules anymore. Okay, good to know.
Well, some of us do.
And the good ones. You've got this incredible path that you've been on. You're a Michigan kid. You're a doctor. You're a Rhodes Scholar, which makes me nervous. I'll try to be smarter. And you ran a health department. Was there a moment along the way? Obviously there was. And when was it that you said, you know what? I've done these things, and I think politics is my path forward. And when you made that decision, how much of that came from how you were raised?
I had never thought that politics was there for me, to be honest for you. Like, my name's Abdul, and it's been a source of much consternation from the capital D Democratic Party. And so I always just thought that like this was off limits for somebody like me. And my whole life when I was growing up, people were like, someday you're going to run for office, whether it was my athletic coaches or my mentors in college. Even when I graduated from the University of Michigan, I was the student commencement speaker, and the main speaker was Bill Clinton. And he even came up to me and said, maybe someday you'll run for office. I even joked with him. I was like, my first name is 11 letters long. It's got sounds that come out of parts of people's throats they don't know they have. So I don't think that's there for me. And instead, I really want to be a doctor, in large part because I spent a lot of my childhood summers in Egypt, where my folks immigrated from. And I'd spend my time with my grandmother, my Teta Soad, wisest, most intelligent person I've ever met. But she never got to go to school. And she lost 2 of her infant children of the 8 to whom she gave birth before their first birthday. And she was really good at reminding me the opportunities I had, sometimes brutal about it. Just reminding me that the thing I had going for me wasn't that I was any smarter than my cousins or anything else. It was that I had opportunities. And those opportunities I saw manifest in my life. Whether it was the fact that I got vaccinated against diseases that killed an aunt and uncle I never got to meet, or I got to go to incredible public schools not too far away from here, or I got to go to an amazing public university. I got to get my medical education funded by the NIH, which is a public agency. The thing I realized as I was training in medicine, right, as a function of recognizing just how little so many people in our country got of those same opportunities, was that the 2 questions you ask are what's wrong and how can I help? And too often, if you want to understand why you can go 15 hours to Egypt and travel 10 years difference in life expectancy, or you can go 15 minutes from where I grew up in Oakland County into the city of Detroit and travel the same 10-year life expectancy gap, too often that had to do with the kind of air people breathe, the water that they drink, the access to groceries that they have or don't have, the kind of jobs that they can rely on, the home that they live in, whether or not they can see a doctor in the first place. And so much of that sits downstream of our politics. And so, that for me was the first moment I ever took seriously the idea of running for office. And I think it's why I found myself on that path, because, you spend a lot of time in medicine learning about the pathologies in our bodies. We don't spend enough time thinking about the pathologies in our politics that leave people without and some people with. And I've always wanted to be a part of solving those problems, and politics is sort of a logical conclusion there.
Back in 2018, you ran for governor and you lost to Governor Whitmer. So since 2018, when you went through that, what do you think has changed about you and your perspective, and also the perspective of voters and our elected officials? What's been the change that's occurred?
I was a hard-fought campaign. I'm really grateful to all the folks who supported us. At that point, I was 32 when I launched that campaign. I'd never run for office before in my life. I didn't have any kids. We had our first one in the middle of the last campaign. We're trying really hard to make sure that doesn't happen in this campaign. But this time around, I'm like, 30, going from 32, living in my in-laws' basement, to 40 with 2 kids and a mortgage. You grow up. And I think there's something about raising kids that really is like this incredible patina on your soul, right? It just forces a certain amount of patience. Like when your kid in the middle of the night comes to your bed, wakes you up, and then like pees the bed in the middle of the night, you have to wake up while they're tantruming, clean the bed, clean yourself, clean them. And you're like, but you came to my bed and you peed my bed. It just reminds you that a lot of things are outside your control, and caring for people is about having the kind of empathy and mercy that allows you to recognize the bigger picture here. And I just think that like you go through enough of those life experiences, and it allows you to think and talk in a bit of a more flexible way. And I'm really grateful for that. I haven't changed when it comes to my central beliefs. I believe that the central problem in our politics is that they've been corrupted by oligarchs and billionaires and corporations. I believe that everybody should be guaranteed access to the healthcare they need and deserve in this country. I believe that the foundations of our system have made life unaffordable for too many people. And in so many ways, we're talking about the same issues that we talked about in 2018. But I also think that the electorate has changed. I remember running, and at that time in 2018, it almost felt like the record had skipped, right? Like there was just this big cosmic mistake that made Donald Trump president, and that like we just had to find our way back. After 8 years of Obama, we just had to find our way back and everything would be okay again. And I would say this thing that I think people weren't quite ready to hear, which is that Donald Trump himself is not the disease of our politics. He's just the worst symptom of the disease. And I think now, after he's been reelected again, after all he did wrong for the first 4 years of his time in office, I think people are recognizing that it is actually a lot bigger. And so what I'm talking about is, yes, we have to stand up to Donald Trump. And I got receipts. I don't back down. Anybody who knows me knows I don't back down from a fight. I like a good fight. But at the same time, you got to remember what you're fighting for. It's not just about beating Trump and pretending like we go back to the day before he went down that hideous golden escalator. We got to remember that there are circumstances that existed in 2015 that he exploited to come to power, and exploited to come to power again in 2024. And if we're not serious about solving those problems, then we're not really serious about standing up to Trump or Trumpism. And politics is not about this like perpetual warfare. It's not WWE. Politics is about solving problems for everyday people. And so I think people are a lot more interested in a message that is bigger than Trump and Trumpism. They don't want to just win the war. I think they want to win the peace. And I think we're offering an opportunity to be thinking about those challenges in people's lives and connecting to them. And for 10 years now, right? When I ran for the first time, I'd only been on the scene for what, a year and a half, 2 years. This time around, people know who I am. I've been around for 10 years saying the same thing. And I think they're looking for authenticity and consistency. And I think I offer that in the work that I've done to eliminate medical debt or put glasses on kids' faces and to lead in some of the most challenging bureaucratic circumstances in the country. And this time around, when I'm engaging, I'm hoping to bring a little bit more of that mercy and a little bit more of the recognition that rather than be so focused on what's wrong, talk about what could be right and bring people to that. And I've learned that as a father, I've learned that as a husband, I've learned that having run for office once before, and I've learned that over the 10 years that I've been in public service. And I'm grateful to be back out here offering folks a perspective on a vision of hope that gets us past both all the terrible things that he's actually doing, but also all of the terrible emotions that we all feel every day, to believe in something that could be better and the will to fight for it.
So yeah, the focus on Trump as being a horrible leader isn't as fruitful as talking about what things we need to achieve. What was it like growing up as a child in an Arab American family? Did you discuss politics around the dinner table? Were your parents open to talking about politics?
I grew up in this like fascinating household that for me, it was just normal, but like I didn't appreciate just how uncommon my household was. So my parents are both Egyptian immigrants. They had me and very quickly realized that this was an ill-fated marriage, and they got divorced and they both remarried. My mom moved abroad, so I didn't spend that much time with her when I was a kid. I grew up with my father and my stepmom, Jackie, who is white American from the middle of the state, from a town called St. Louis in Gratiot County. And so I grew up in this home where, folks talk about code switching. I spent a lot of time trying to translate my parents to each other, right? And one of the nice things about growing up the way that I grew up as an Arab American kid named Abdul, constantly walking between different worlds, was that I took for granted the need to have to explain myself everywhere I went, right? This is who I am. This is what I'm about. And one of the most amazing things about explaining yourself is when you're explaining, it's not just about you, it's about what you perceive others to think about you. So you get really good at understanding, like, what are your centers? What are your values? And how can I put my context in your values and language you can appreciate and understand? And that comes from the idea and the fact that, like, whether it was hanging out with my Teta Soad in Egypt or my grandma Judy in Michigan, the way your grandmother kisses you on the forehead, makes your favorite meal, and tells you I love you is the same. And there are these center points that make us human that all of us can touch on. And the amazing thing for me is that I got to see all these different flavors of that. And I also got to understand that when you're explaining yourself, if you can find that center core and you can always put it in language that people can perceive and understand from their reality, that it's a lot easier to bring people together than you think it is. So we talked about politics all the time because, it was inevitable, right, that these kinds of questions would come up. Like, I'm gonna think about my Thanksgiving table. I, sit with my father, who is a professor of engineering and also would lead prayers at our local mosque. I think about my grandparents who are deacons at the Presbyterian church. I got an uncle who is an immigrant from Poland who's an atheist. As you can imagine, having this conversation about civics with this group of people and getting all of these different perspectives and watching them hash it out and talk it through and thinking, man, A, it's always possible to find a point of common ground. And B, sometimes there are going to be disagreements, but you can still love each other beyond them. And I just think that growing up in a household like that has been so critical to being able to do the work of politics in this particular moment when we think there is no common ground and there's no way to see eye to eye with people who don't agree with you. Like, I saw that happen every day in my life, and I'm super grateful for that. And I'm trying to bring that to our civics right now.
So this upbringing, the experience that you had, the rich experience, probably prepared you to be a candidate, to run for these offices. Because now running for Senate, just like when you ran for governor, I can't imagine how many people you must speak to in a week, how many doors you must knock, how many phones you must ring. But what are you hearing from people as you are connecting with them as a candidate for Senate? What are you hearing from people that they're concerned about, that they think that you being elected a U.S. Senator will solve for them?
I've been to more than 40 different cities now, Lori, and it doesn't really matter where I go. The same general feeling comes out, which is I am so tired and it just shouldn't be this hard. And I don't understand why. It just seems like it's always getting harder. And that shows up in some very particular ways. I don't know that the job I worked yesterday is going to be there for me tomorrow. I am embarrassed that I have to think at the grocery store about whether or not I can afford a little bit more, right? And I got to go walk back that half gallon of ice cream that I wanted to buy for the family. I'm really worried about what might happen if my kid or I get sick because I can't afford my deductible. I'm worried if I'm ever going to be able to own a home if folks are under the age of 40, or if I can stay in my home if I'm over the age of 65. I'm worried about what this administration is doing to my benefits. I'm worried about whether or not I can look my neighbors in the eyes and have an honest conversation about the places we agree and disagree. I'm worried, and it shouldn't be this hard. And the thing about it is, it doesn't matter if you're talking in a union hall in Escanaba or you're talking in a church in Detroit. It really is the same issues in the same language. I think that, for me, this is an ongoing conversation that I've been having with Michiganders over the past 10 years since I've been in public service. And I can tell you that it has gotten harder. the urgency has gotten clearer. The look of wariness has just gotten more profound. And if we're not serious about actually solving it, I worry about where we go from here. And my hope is that folks recognize that I've been talking about the same things now for 10 years. I don't pull my punch. I'm not waiting for some pollster to tell me what to say. I'm not waiting to get the green light from my corporate backers or the special interests that I want to fund my campaign, because I don't take corporate money. I'm the only person in this race who never has and never will. And so folks understand that when I'm talking to them, I'm being specific and direct about the solutions that I think could actually make things work. It's always kind of interesting to watch people hear what I have to say and be like, that's like refreshing. And it seems like you're not pretending. And I'm like, no, I'm talking to you very clearly and very directly about what I think is causing your problems and what I want to do about it. And I watch as people, it's almost like you're doing like civic chiropractics. It's like people just feel the adjustment and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what it feels like to like, to believe that things could actually be better. And I'm grateful that we get to do that work with folks, but it's because we're not doing politics as usual. And it's that system of democratic politics that is just absolutely leaving people feeling like they're hopeless.
I'm going off script. I hope they don't cut my mic.
It's your podcast. It literally has your name on it. So like they can't cut your mic.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Listen, you don't take corporate money. You had a big last quarter. How do you do it? How do you overcome the deficit of not taking the easy way?
I think when people see authenticity, they want to be a part of it. All right? We have 17,000 plus donors to this campaign. And we're getting, there's a woman in Kentucky who sends me $100 check every month. Wow. Someday when I go to Kentucky, I want to go and I want to knock on her door and just thank her. And I think like, what is, this person has never met me. Like, why are they contributing to this campaign? And I think it's because they see in this race some hope about what could be possible if politics weren't dictated by special interests and corporations and folks out in DC. I know that there are thousands of people like her. 95% of our contributions were under $100. So I think it's just having the courage of your convictions and then being willing to go out there and do the work, right? The hardest thing I do every day is I have to ask people for money. It really sucks. And like the thing I always remind folks, I'm like, look, I hate asking for money. As a child of immigrants, we don't ask for anything. I'm not asking corporations and the folks who want to corrupt our politics for their money. So instead, I got to ask good people for theirs. And when you go out there and do that and you're honest with them about what it takes to be able to win in this environment, I think people are willing to meet you where you go. And one of the things you learn running a campaign is like, it is not about you, right? There might be one name on the front of the jersey, but everybody's got a jersey with their name on the back. And I want folks to recognize that this is a movement of people, by people, and for people. And that means that people need to come and be a part of it and to lift together. And then I hope that if I win, I always ask people, lift me up and then hold me down. Because my job is to serve you. And if I'm missing that opportunity, I want you to know that there's not somebody else I'm serving. It's just you.
Well, when things get tough, and I'm sure they do, you just have to remember not only your grandmother that's your inspiration, but that woman in Kentucky that's sending you $100 a month. That's very inspirational. I'm going to caution you here. I've now done 5 or 6 of these podcasts, so I'm not going to let you get off the hook. We've had a couple people not answer this question all the way, and we hear about it on social media. So you've been a loud and clear voice for Medicare for all. That scares a lot of people. And you've even earned Bernie Sanders support in this race. Why is it important to you? And maybe you can give a real clear, concise opinion of Medicare for all that explains what it is so people aren't always passing around the wrong information. But how does this connect to your vision for what you want for Michigan?
One of the most unaffordable aspects of our lives nowadays is healthcare. You think
Hallelujah.
About if you're privately insured, you get your pay garnished every 2 weeks or 4 weeks so that you can be insured. And the part of the word that people actually care about is the sure part. You're supposed to be sure about something, right? And the only thing you can be sure about now is that if you get sick, you're going to have to pay again, right? They've created these things called deductibles, which again is a word that has no meaning outside of this context, so that you have to pay again for the healthcare you already thought you paid for. And the analogy I always use here is like, imagine you're watching Bridgerton on Netflix. Not that I've watched Bridgerton. I have watched Bridgerton. But if that's your thing, maybe Cobra Kai, you pay every month to get to watch Netflix. And then you get to the finale and all of a sudden, boom, $19.99. And you're like, what the hell? I already paid. And they're like, well, you got to pay again. That $19.99 though is on average $4,000 for a family of four, who by the way, makes about $80,000 a year. And if you're doing the math, that means that to get the healthcare they thought they already paid for, they have to forego more than a whole paycheck. That's insane. That's the reason why we have medical debt to the tune of $225 billion. That is more than the GDP of half of the states in this country in medical debt. While I was in Wayne County, I tried to do my best to eliminate it, to erase it for people in the county. But let's be clear, we still have a system that generates more of it every single day in the richest, most powerful country in the world. Why? It's not because doctors are making more money or nurses are making more money. It's because you have this collusion between health insurance companies and hospitals. And they're able to play this game where they negotiate rates that allow both of them to pocket more and more of our healthcare dollars so that they get rich. And then you've got these mergers and acquisitions, which are happening at breakneck speed in our region alone here in Southeast Michigan, that then leave them colluding to reduce the pay that they give to doctors and nurses and increase the prices on us. We're going to watch double-digit rate hikes again, right? They just announced it. And ask yourself, does that make my healthcare better? Do I think I'm going to be able to see a doctor faster? So what does Medicare for All do? The healthcare part of things stays private. But it says that in the richest, most powerful country in the world, the government really can provide us all health insurance. And by the way, if you're over 65, it already does that for you. It's a crazy thing if you think about it, right? Just, one of the things I learned in med school is people tend to get sicker as they get older. So we wait until people tend to get sicker and then we guarantee them healthcare through the government. Like, why can't we just do that for everyone else? What would that do for us? Well, number one, it would cover everybody from cradle to grave. So you would not have people who are uninsured. Number two, because you have one insurer for everybody, that one insurer can negotiate on our behalf, right, to reduce the prices of healthcare so healthcare costs don't go up every year. Number three, because you only have one insurer, all of this game between healthcare providers and health insurers to negotiate these prices that make sure that they all win, that game goes away because there's one price and it's dictated by Medicare. Number four, our healthcare costs not only are the most expensive in the world, but they go up faster than any other country in the world. And so being able to keep the general price down over time is going to save us huge amounts of money over time. Number five, rather than huge hospitals always winning, you can have independent providers being able to succeed and grow without having to worry about whether or not they can too negotiate sweetheart deals with the insurers. Number six, you don't have to worry about what might happen to your insurance if you change a job, if you get married, if you get divorced. How many people are stuck in dead-end marriages or dead-end jobs because they're worried about losing their health insurance? Think about all the small businesses that don't get started because people can't figure out how to provide themselves insurance if they were to make that leap. This is bad for the economy. That goes away. And then finally, right, if you want to have top-up insurance because your union or your job negotiated that for you, that can stay. That's fine. But if your factory shuts down or you get let go from your job, you shouldn't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to get healthcare if you have an accident or you have a heart attack. Finally, we talk about gatekeeping and wait times. The average wait time to see a cardiologist in America right now is about 2.5 months. And by the way, nobody goes to see a cardiologist because they need something in 2.5 months. You think about who gatekeeps, what doctors you can see in network, out of network. If Medicare is your insurer, everyone takes it, so you can go anywhere. There isn't gatekeeping. There isn't, well, I have to wait so long to see a cardiologist that my insurer will actually fund. All of that goes away. We can have nice things. Now, the only reason we don't is because if you look at lobbying and you look at electioneering in our system, the healthcare industry spends more money lobbying and electioneering than any other industry in America. And so we have to choose that we can do better and we're willing to invest in one another rather than letting them tell us what we should fear while they figure out how to pick our pockets at every turn. So yes, I believe in Medicare for all. I've literally written the book. I welcome anybody to go to the local public library. We've thought through all of the issues. I'm more than happy to talk about it, but I don't run away from the fact that healthcare right now has become one of the most unsustainable aspects of our society and that we have to solve it.
And if I live to 105, which I plan on, by the way,
I love
I will
that for
never, thank you so much. I will never understand why anyone is against this ever. I sell real estate and I work with a lot of housing insecure, working poor, single mothers, sometimes single fathers that need a place to rent. God forbid they're never going to afford a house to purchase. And it comes up every time, unpaid medical debt that is dinging their credit so that a landlord will not easily accept them. I see it every motherfucking day.
I appreciate you saying that. And so I went to whole medical school, like 4 years in medicine. I had applied for residency and I knew that I wanted to spend my career taking care of people who otherwise didn't have healthcare. I remember watching as the hospital I was training in did all it could to kick out a patient because they knew that she would not be able to pay. In the end, I actually pulled my residency application because I could not justify spending time in the system that was failing the kind of patients who get failed over and over and over again when I should be spending time trying to fix that system in the first place. So much of my career has been about trying to ask, what is the kind of healthcare system that dignifies the people it's supposed to serve and the people who are supposed to work in it? Now, look, let me tell you why people are against this. It's not because they don't agree with you and me. It's because they're afraid of the insurance industry and are willing to be bent by it. I'm just not. Like, I have, I'm sorry, zero fucks left to give for the insurance industry, for the pharmaceutical industry, for all of these folks who figure out how to pick our pockets simply because we get sick. I mean, it is the cruelest aspect of our politics and our society. And if you are not hell-bent on solving it, I just have to ask, like, why are you doing this? Right? And people justify it. They say, well, I have to make okay with them so I can get into a position of power. And then once I get into a position of power, somehow I'm going to acquire enough power to be able to actually fix it. No, you won't. Everybody plays the same damn game.
Right.
And in the end, if you are not willing to be 100% honest about what the problems are, right, from the get, I'm sorry, I just don't believe that all of a sudden when more power is bearing down on you that you're going to somehow find your morals. If those morals aren't what's propelling you to do this thing in the first place, go find something else to do. But if you are not serious about solving the single biggest challenge that is facing American public right now, then what are we even doing here? Sorry.
You've supported eliminating the filibuster. What other reforms are you willing to fight for and push through? And is that even possible that you can have things? Our government is so fucked up. I don't even know. I'm a skeptic. Change can happen in any way.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hard part right now is that we are at a point where the portal is closing. It feels like unless we get some really serious reforms, that we're going to foreclose on the possibility of reform in the future. The filibuster is one of them. And the reason that I believe in abolishing the filibuster is because it's an anti-democratic thing.
Explain what it is to people that don't know.
So the filibuster is a process by which one senator can shut down debate on a potential bill. It's anti-democratic because the way democracy is supposed to work is that the majority rules with minority rights. And so you should have a system by which having the votes you need to pass a bill gets that bill passed. The filibuster initially was supposed to be you basically could run out the clock by just talking and talking and talking and talking. They have since built a whole bunch of technicalities that make it easier and easier to filibuster. And the problem with the filibuster is that it allows people to avoid the democratic process because you've got one senator, possibly, depending upon the situation, who can filibuster, which means that all of the other folks who want to avoid taking a hard vote can hide behind that one filibuster. And I hate to say it, sometimes it's people on both sides of the aisle.
Sure.
And so if you are hiding people from the democratic consequences of the votes that they need to take as elected representatives, that is fundamentally anti-democratic. Now, a lot of folks would say, well, Abdul, like, if you did away with the filibuster, think about what they could get away with now. Well, look at what they're already getting away with now, first of all, right? Second, then okay, they would have to take hard votes and they would have to face their voters and their constituencies. And I think that would be better for the system overall rather than obfuscating and hiding behind the filibuster. But there are a lot of other things we can do. Here in Michigan, ranked choice voting, right? Why is it that we allow parties to dominate this process when in fact we could vote ranked choice and it would force people to fully expose themselves to their voters in all of the ways that that voters deserve, rather than hiding behind an obfuscated process that over empowers parties. And I happen to say this as somebody who, a whole documentary was done on the way that the party tried to do what it did to beat me back in 2018. Another big piece where I think we could have some reform is in the Supreme Court, right? The joke is that given where we have with life appointments, the incentive is to figure out who the most athletic graduate of Harvard or Yale Law School is, and then get them appointed to the court like immediately, right? And then they have a lifetime appointment, which is like 70 years long, right? And this process has run amok. It has given us a court that is way too powerful in ways that keep us from being able to have the kind of democratically led society that we need and deserve. And so I think there's a lot that could be done there. Finally, you think about like the Electoral College, right? Here in Michigan, a lot of folks would say, well, this really benefits us, but does it benefit democracy? And if it doesn't benefit democracy, does it really benefit us, right? And so I think we need to be thinking long-term and big picture about the kinds of things that really would benefit us. Finally, you think about gerrymandering, right? We're seeing this whole situation in Texas play out. But what the Texas governor and legislature are doing is they are playing out the logical end conclusion of a system that allows folks to pick and choose their voters. And so there's so much that we should be rethinking in the very guts. The last one I'll give you, right, just so nobody says I run away from the question, is the pardon power of the presidency. Like, we've seen this get abused in a couple of different ways. And I hate to say it, obviously it's Donald Trump, but it's also Democrats too, right? And like, this sets up situations where presidents who want to use it to accumulate powers that they shouldn't have could possibly use it. And we see the danger under a president like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree. And Democrats do it because he did it. So it's okay for me to do it like Biden did, which I don't agree with.
Agree.
So, we're here in Michigan. You're running for U.S. Senate to represent Michigan. But national things and international things bleed in to even here where we are. How do you view these key national debates, such as what's going on in Israel and Gaza? And what are their implications for not only the Michigan voters, but the people running for office? This is a hairy thing to deal with.
Yeah. I think values are values. And if you purport a certain set of values, those values should apply in every place all the time. And I think we have been so afraid of MAGA billionaire money coming into Democratic primaries that we have, as a party, allowed for the enforcement of a certain kind of dehumanizing language around Palestinian people. And we've watched that play out in some really terrible ways. Our tax dollars are funding a genocide in Gaza, full stop. That genocide didn't happen overnight. It's been 660 some days as we've watched as journalists have been killed and hospitals and schools have been bombed and children have been decimated and starved and food has been used as a weapon of war, and 60,000 plus people and 18,000 plus kids have been killed and their homes have been rendered unlivable, and a genocidal troika of leaders in Israel have tried to send them off into other countries because they happen to speak the same language. That is what has happened. Our tax dollars have done that. I'm running for senator for Michigan. And meanwhile, over the course of those 660 some days, hungry kids have stayed hungry. Our schools have continued to crumble. Our healthcare is no more affordable. Our infrastructure is still broken. And I have to ask myself, as a future senator from the state of Michigan, what is my responsibility? It's not to tell people how to solve their problems over there, but it's for damn sure not to stand by while our tax dollars are making their problems worse and underwriting a genocide while our own people suffer. And I just think that should not be that hard to say, because it is a morally obvious thing. I condemned Hamas on day one because anybody who puts children in harm's way is wrong, and that's bad, and that's condemnable, and they are wrong. And for the same reason, I have been condemning what Israel is doing in Gaza since. For the same reason. It's not that hard. Now, if you are afraid of standing up to power, then it might be. And here's the thing. I think for the majority of Michigan voters, their question is, what are you going to do for me? But when you can't name a genocide for what it is, and then you're also saying that you're going to stand up to the insurance corporations and the utilities and the banks who are making your life unlivable, it's a little precious to ask people to believe you when you can't name the obvious thing that's right in front of you. And you're afraid to stand up to your own party. Come on. And so the reason that this has become so resonant is because if you can't name the obvious moral blemish and stand up to your own party, how the hell can I trust you to stand up against these powerful forces that have corrupted both parties? I don't think it's that hard. And I say this as someone who's running for Senate in Michigan because I want Michigan's tax dollars to be spent in Michigan rather than using or enforcing starvation as a weapon against innocent civilian children. The last point I'll make on this is this. I want you to think about, we've seen over the last couple of weeks that finally some Democrats are finding their morals here, a little bit too little, a little bit too late. Imagine we'd had this awakening a year ago. Imagine we finally were able to name genocide for what it was in the summer of 2024. And the Harris campaign would have taken a big step back and said, you know what? If I get elected, I am not going to continue this disastrous policy of the Biden administration. I'm going to do something differently. Imagine what that might have meant for where we are right now. Because look, I endorse the uncommitted campaign because for me, the president's disastrous handling of Gaza was indicative of his inability to do the job. I think everybody finally saw it. And then I endorsed Kamala Harris because I said, no matter what the situation, whether you're looking at this issue from the perspective of the eyes of a child in Detroit or the eyes of a child in Gaza, that Donald Trump will be worse. And I just wish that we would be led by our morals because I think we as a party could have made a different decision. I think we as a party might have ended up in a different place. But here we are. There are starving children in Gaza because of our tax dollars, and we are living under a second Trump regime.
Yeah, I think silence is the biggest enemy here when people aren't speaking out and up. We're seeing a growing number of young men, and I will say personally, I have 17-year-old triplets. One of them is a boy.
Wow.
And he was raised in my house for the last 10 years since Femmes for Dems. And they didn't have play groups. They had fundraisers and friend raisers in the house. And even being around me for the last 10 years is very formative years, my son included. These young men are being groomed online and pulled toward reactionary and untruthful politics. And they're tuning out, or worse yet, they're buying into it. My son asked my sister-in-law a few days ago, or maybe it was a week ago, if Obama was a bad president. For my son not to fucking know that is a ridiculous sentence. It makes me rethink all of my parenting. But what do you think is driving this? And what are Democrats doing? We as Democrats, all of us, wrong, that's letting this right-wing narrative win. What the hell is going on here?
I want to speak to this in a couple ways. Number one, I think, as a party, we have not had a coherent conversation with young men for a long time. Too often when you hear the words masculinity, it is preceded by a very particular adjective, right? And so we are not offering an alternative, right, to the label of toxic masculinity. And so for a lot of young men who say, well, masculinity is just a part of who I am, and I guess if you're going to label me toxic, I'm going to find people who don't, they find those alternatives online. But the other part of it is that we have failed to recognize a lot of the challenges that young men are facing right now. And I know that in an audience of Democrats, you're going to be like, oh, that's rich, Abdul. There are so many other people who have it worse than young men. But let me just hear me out on this. I got a friend of mine who our entire relationship consists of watching sports together. That's our whole relationship. And the whenever he and I see each other, the whole banter is about bringing up athletes from the 90s and then just thinking about all the cool things that they did. And that was that, right? That's our whole relationship. And there are a lot of young men out there who are probably like, I have like 4 of those relationships, right? He doesn't watch sports anymore. And the reason he doesn't watch sports anymore is because he almost lost his home to problematic gambling. And the problem is that you cannot watch sports without being fed these advertisements. And if you have problematic gambling, basically sports are off limits to you. And I don't know any young man who isn't struggling with problem engagement with one of these things: sports betting, gaming, cannabis, porn. And the answer isn't, of course, to ban any of these things. But I think we have to have an honest conversation about the ways that young men and their dopamine circuits are being exploited for gain by corporations who are making it a lot harder for these young men. And they target specifically young men. I know many 14, 15, 16-year-old boys who are like, my For You page on TikTok and Instagram is basically an entryway into porn. And let's be clear, for people over the age of 18, however you want to spend your time. But to be targeted at 14, 15, and 16 when you're just now starting to figure out what your sexuality is a real problem. And I think we have an opportunity to get serious in both saying we can embrace a more benevolent version of masculinity that is about empowering and promoting and protecting and creating equal space for everybody, right? And also, we can get serious about taking on the corporate power that has made being a young man so much more difficult because you are constantly falling into one trap or another. I think as a Democratic Party, we've missed both things. We basically blame young men for their issues. We call it toxic masculinity. And then we wonder why they don't want to come back because we're not offering an alternative. We're not being serious about the challenges that they face. I think right now, if you look at what Trump and Trumpism are doing, like think about who's going to get lopped off of Medicaid. The group that is going to get cut off of Medicaid most because of these work requirements are going to be young men, right? If you think about what the impact on this economy and the ways that they've gone about tariffing, I think we're on like our third freedom or liberation day now, they're going to target young men. I think we have an opening, an opportunity, if we're willing to have an honest and coherent conversation about what it takes to bring young men back. And blaming people for their own challenges has never been a way forward. It has not been the way that Democrats talk about doing politics. So I do not know why we continue to do it this way with this particular group of people.
Okay, we're going to do the lightning round now.
All right.
And I don't write these questions, but I'm grateful for them. I don't even know what
did your
some of them
17-year-old
mean.
son write them?
No, but somebody almost that age. What's your weirdest or most niche obsession that people would not expect of you? Like, do you follow capybara rescue accounts, whatever the fuck that is, or get weirdly intense about trains? I had no idea any of this was happening.
I will say, like, social media has created these like online niches, and the problem with the algorithms is they've gotten so good that they like basically read and scan your limbic system. So I had no idea I enjoy watching mountain bike crashes, but this is a thing that I keep getting served, and I can't look away. There are a couple of things that I get. People probably know this. I get real into coffee, and I've got a home gym I've been building since like 2020. That I think Sarah is actually working in right now. But I like scan Facebook Marketplace for good deals on like home gym products to the point where I have actively coordinated like a dumbbell pickup after a town hall. So dude came over with the dumbbells. I was like, I gotta get out. I was like, one more question. I gotta go. I gotta get my dumbbells. And then the other thing this is one I got real into. So I was a child in the 90s, right? And when I was a kid, we got one pair of school shoes, and that pair of school shoes had to last you for a while. And I remember the first time I got a pair of Air Max 90s, and I just fell in love with the design, the way it fits your foot, like the look of the shoe. And so I get real into Air Max 90s in different colorways. I'm wearing my my pair of my all black Air Max 90s that are my campaign trail.
Very cool.
Air Maxes, but yeah. So I've got these like weird. Anybody who knows me knows that like I don't do anything halfway, ever. So whenever I get into a thing, I get all the way into things. So whether it's like coffee or biking or shoes or there are many of these.
All right. Well, you just explained how they pick up, what you're looking at and they feed it back to you. Yeah. I'm getting a lot of vaginal dryness ads. I don't know why. Okay, next question.
And your 17-year-old son is getting other vaginal ads, and it's like a whole thing.
You can cut that out, guys. Okay, which Michigan stereotype, it runs in the family, which Michigan stereotype are you guilty of? Using your hand as a map, pronouncing Mackinac with authority, or do you have a certain Werner's cure-all that you love?
I definitely do the hand. If I'm going to pick like chips and soda is going to be Better Made or Faygo, right? Here's a crazy story. My 10th grade English teacher was an heiress to the Faygo fortune.
Wow.
Mrs. Fagenson.
Oh yeah, that was the name.
That was the name. So I didn't know this, but people are like, yo, she's like Faygo. And so I got real into Red Pop for a while. The Diet Red Pop's not as good. And I'm 40 years old. I can't do the like regular Red Pop anymore. Mackinac's an interesting one. I guess I do say it with like some authority. I feel like you can't. I mean, what would be the like, non-authoritative way of saying Mackinac? I'd be like
hesitant.
Yeah,
Mackinac, whatever. Okay, all right. What's harder?
Here's one thing on this note, like Mackinac City and Mackinac Island. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that when they talk about the city, it ends with a W? Like when you see it written, the city ends with a W.
I saw that recently. I'm like, what's that about?
And the island, right? Like it just makes no sense to me. And then the other question to me is like, why is Algonac and not Algonac?
All right. I'm just going to be ruminating on this the rest of the day.
These are the questions we all need to answer. You asked about my obsessions. Those are the ones. Also, just like other states, why is it Kansas and Arkansas? It should either be Arkansas or Kansas. Sorry. I just like these consistency issues get me.
Okay. All right. Hey, I can't answer any of those, but I get it. What's harder, prepping for a Senate debate or getting a toddler to bed?
Toddler to bed, no question.
Okay. Especially if the toddler's peeing in your bed from previously.
Yes. I mean, this is the problem is that it's like people think getting the toddler to bed is like there's an end outcome.
Yeah.
There's no end outcome.
No.
Because the toddler can get back out of bed.
Temporary.
Right? And
Temporary.
and then the toddler gets into your bed.
Yeah.
And then this becomes a whole different thing. And the problem is that like I sleep in one position. Like once I go to sleep and then I stay asleep in that position and I like to wake up in that position. Sometimes I roll over once. My toddler, like I do not understand. I mean, we have a king bed. It's me, Sarah, and then Sireen, who's our 2-year-old. The number of times I've woken up with like feet in my face. Like I literally got woken up, got kicked one time in the eye, and I was like, what the hell? Like, I thought it was Sarah who punched me. I was like, what the hell, bro? And then I look over, it's like, this makes a lot more sense. You pick her up, put her in the normal position, and then 15 minutes later is like all over the place. So there is not one end outcome of getting to bed. Like at least with the debate ends. Yeah,
you're right.
Like with the toddler, like this is going to be a journey, and then you play the game, and then tomorrow we'll play the game again. And again and again. And now we have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and there's like a whole massive interaction because my 7-year-old is very smart about playing off the 2-year-old. And so she knows that there are games she can play to stay up longer around the 2-year-old. So if she can keep the 2-year-old up, that means she can stay up. And I'm like, man, you've like really gamed this out.
Hey, maybe she has a future in politics
She
too.
definitely does.
Hey, what's the last show you binge watched that you'd recommend to all of us?
Shogun. Very good.
Okay. What is it about?
It is about the interplay between the Japanese and basically Christendom, Europe, both the Protestant side and the Catholic side, in ancient Japan. And they do an amazing job of both introducing ancient Japanese and ancient Japanese tradition. It's an incredible political show. Think like House of Cards, but you're thinking about like both the games that like the Portuguese and they're playing, and then the games that the Japanese are playing to consolidate power. So think like Game of Thrones played in like real life in history across 2 different continents.
Wow, and Shogun, that's what it's called. Okay. What is your favorite up north spot?
I really love Traverse City as just a vibe. And if folks haven't gone, there's this incredible place called Hexenbell. I highly recommend. Great food, and you got to get the batata harro, which is really good, which is like this potato dish that they do really well.
And what's it called?
It's called Hexenbell.
Hexenbell. Okay. All right. We're done with the lightning round. Last question to you. What do you think your chances are of prevailing in this race?
I think I'm going to win, but I've also lost an election before. And I think I played a lot of sports growing up, and there's a difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. And, you know, for me, making the decision to jump in was a really hard thing. I got a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old. I don't get to put to bed most nights. And as hard as it is to put your toddler to bed, it is a true joy to get to be a part of. I only jumped in because A, I believe that it's what's best for my kids. And B, because I believe that this campaign has the opportunity not just to win a race, but to try and change our politics. I won't measure my success based on like winning on election day, which I hope to do, and I hope that folks will get involved in the campaign. But I will judge our success based on whether or not after 6 years of my service, our politics look, feel, and deliver different. That's what I'm doing this for. So the opportunity to prevail doesn't, you know, end on election day. It really is about, can you build something that really shows different and presents different about what our politics are about? And so I hope you'll ask me that same question 6 years, well, 8 years, 7 years from now.
I hope so too. I thank you so much for being here today.
Honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.